906 Outdoors is brought to you by Cooking Wild Seasonings. Make it fresh, make it yours. Welcome to 906 Outdoors. Our birch bark canoe is getting close to its maiden voyage. We'll take a look at some of the finishing touches.
You can see this part here is meant to be buried, and then this part here is meant to be seen.
And we'll pay a visit to another canoe builder who prefers wood. 9 million acres of forest, 1,700 miles of continuous shoreline, 4,300 lakes, 12,000 miles of streams, more than 300 waterfalls, 15 counties, 2 time zones, and 1 area code. Welcome to the Upper Peninsula. Welcome to 906 Outdoors. Well, it won't be long now and our birch bark canoe will be in the water for its maiden voyage. First, as you might have guessed, it needs some waterproofing. And as you may have also guessed, everything needed to do that comes from the woods.
Okay, well this is one of the ways to get the pitch. It's got to be either spruce or pine. Fir and larch and stuff won't really, it's not the right kind of pitch. This is one of the nice things about this kind of canoe building. You get to roam around in the woods looking for all this cool stuff. You never know, you might find some chaga or something on the way. A lot of times there'll be a big fat caterpillar, like a worm inside of it. We call them pitch worms. I imagine it's like a moth or somebody's larva. It's terpenes. Turpentine is extracted if you put this in a still. And that's the volatile organic compounds, your VOC. This is the Stone Age VOC. The volatiles, the turpentine evaporates out and this slowly gets harder. So as it ages, it goes from being 30 weight oil and ends up being 100 weight, million weight oil. So when the turpentine all evaporates out is becomes what we call rosin. I even found an old box of this. This is what you rub your violin bows in. A lot of people nowadays, they can just buy this in quantity. Been waiting all year to use that little bit. So here we made just get a square of burlap, fold it up 3 ways so it makes an envelope. We'll put the mixture in here, and then we're going to twist it and squeeze all the clean pitch out, and then all the gungatang stays inside there. How much goo can you get out of that? This makes a really nice torch. You put that on the end of a stick. It'd be just like the ones in the castles in the old movies. Well, let's let that cool off for a second. This stuff's pretty precious. Every little bit counts. So if we put that on the end of a stick, that'd make a great torch. In the old days, they would take pine knots and put it in a basket made out of like green willow or just green wood. When the French Canadians showed up, and they would put torches on the end of their canoes for hunting and fishing at night, the blacksmiths would make an iron basket that would hang off the end of the boat so that the pitch didn't drip into the boat and catch the bark canoe on fire out in the middle of the lake. So Torch Lake, Lac de Flambeau, that was because when the first French folks came by, the Indians were out hunting. And then we'd come by at nighttime and camped out, and then they see across the lake all these lights and flames moving around. So that would be the Lake of the Torches.
Canoes on fire.
Yeah, that burns good. There we go. That's precious stuff. I love all the old ways of doing things. That's my life. Yeah, look at that. That's part of a boat. You can see the rosin powder on the bottom.
Today's show is brought to you in part by Rapid River Knife Works, home of Michigan's largest custom knife factory showroom.
And then this here will add some of this stuff to charcoal. If you drop one spark in there, this whole thing will turn into a coal in a few minutes. We think microfiber is new technology. Well, to add this to the pitch, besides it makes more pitch, you have all these little microfibers all throughout the pitch. As the pitch weathers over the years, it chalks off instead of flakes off, because of the microfiber keeps the flaking down to the little micro bits, so that it's just slowly chalking off like a good paint does. And it also gives fiber inside, so it doesn't tend to split or crack as much. And then we add bear fat. This is the best lard on earth. Puts pig lard to shame. If I wasn't a canoe maker, I would be cooking with this. How much bear fat do you got in your refrigerator? Alrighty, making sure you don't get any drips of water going there. We don't want this to explode in our face. Thin piece of bark like this. You dip it in. You put this in the cold water. Now you can see what that'll act like. See that shatters like that? That needs more bear grease. Ice water. Still fracturing. Well, that tells us what we need to know. Even a little more. You don't want to put too much. That's the best smelling soup I think I ever made. What I'm looking for is I like it to crack but not shatter. I think this time's going to be it. Could be a little darker. It's hot sauce. Yeah, now we're talking. I like to see cracks, but I don't like the shattering. Okay. We pounded all those ribs in like you saw. Then you pound them in halfway, flip it over like this, and you just pour hot water on this for, oh, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. Just keep it warm. The bark's all stretching. You can hear everything starting to tick, tick, tick. The lashing is stretching. All the joints, you can imagine how many pieces there are all stitched together. Everything is, you're pushing it to the very limit. And, the ribs have stretched the bark out. You can see the inner layer of bark starting to show through, and some of that gooey pitch oozing out on some of these. There's a lot of hot water went on here, so that all started to flow around. And what that also does is that the layer of pitch on the inside of this bark then heats up and flows into all the nooks and crannies, and hopefully will fill up most of the little holes that we don't even know about. And the pressure from the inside, that's the pitch on the inside starting to ooze out of these gore cuts. Because that's what all these cuts were for. You see now, the old alligator skin is shaped like a boat. Didn't start out that way. I like a lot of rocker in my boats, which means that the center of the boat, you see it'll rock. If you put it on a flat surface, it'll rock just the highest point here. And what that is that sits in the water, the boat's sitting in the water, and then it turns really easy. This is the spinning point of a canoe, whereas if a flat bottom boat, you try to turn that, it's like a battleship. It's going to take you a half a mile to make the turn. But for maneuverability, and if you got a bark boat, you need to be able to turn fast, because it could be a boulder right there. Then it turns fast on the center, so that's called rocker. And you get put a little bit of rise on the end, so that if you hit an obstruction, it'll tend to want to go up over the obstruction instead of just plowing right into it and breaking into your boat. It makes it a little harder to paddle until you know how to paddle. It separates the sheep from the goats when you learn how to paddle a boat like this. We added on the extra 2 feet on each end to make the 14.5 foot. This is added in, it fits underneath, overlaps a couple inches. That's what the bump here is. So then I got to go through, I like to trim it down a little bit, ever so carefully. It may be a 45, so if you hit a rock or something, the pitch will have something to adhere to. It needs a little roughness. One false move and we're back to square one. And perfection is not needed here. This all gets buried in the pitch. We just want a friendly edge. You can see that peg hole there, that's what held those two pieces together during construction. That all gets filled up. Got a few warts. That's just the personality of the tree. I guess we all get a few warts one way or another.
906 Outdoors is brought to you in part by L&M Fleet Supply, proudly serving the Northland for over 30 years.
You know, you can see this part here is meant to be buried, and then this part here is meant to be seen. Because we make the bows waterproof up to this line here. So if you ever wonder what happens to all those fancy white shirts that you give off to the thrift shop, they all end up on the bows and sterns of birch bark canoes. I only used Ralph Lauren on my canoe. Then this, we're gonna soak in the hot pitch. Nope. And then this will get laid right on top of here like that. Cover up nice, because this part gets some abuse. So you're adding this fiber to it so that the pitch doesn't have a chance to just flake off. This will hold it together. And after many years, you'll eventually even start to see some of the cloth wearing through. It really holds up well. Probably. You want to work on that for a while? I build all this up with more pitch and smooth it out, and then clean up the edge, you know, get rid of that stuff there. But there's the fiber. That'll take quite a blow from a stone or a log in the water. Ours has never leaked on the end there. And we've hit a lot of stuff. Okay, Ralph, one more time. I've used pliers before, but then it won't let go. My fingers are the only non-stick thing. Oh, this will come on there.
906 Outdoors is brought to you in part by Blades Bait and Tackle, your year-round connection to fishing Badenoch. Canoes come in all shapes and sizes and are made from a variety of materials. Here's a look at a canoe builder who prefers wood.
My dad built 2 sailboats when I was, in the 40s, when I was, only 4 or 5 years old. And that's when I learned to start working with wood and boat building. And he built 2 wood sailboats, and I've built one, and I built a 30-foot fiberglass sailboat, which I bought the shell. And I've built at least 12 high-speed ice boats, and I say high-speed, these are fast boats. And I built them for people in Canada, and I've raced them all over the country. That's where I got started. My dad was an ice boater when I was young, and then he built the sailboat. Then eventually, later on, when I was about 20, we got it back into ice boating. and I've been in that ever since. The reason I designed this canoe is to get a wider canoe. Most of them, I think, are too narrow. They're very tippy. My girlfriend goes with me. Well, she's used to boating with me. She sailed with me and everything, but she comments, and no matter what, she never feels like it's going to tip. You know, never. It's really stable. You can step in it, and it doesn't want to start doing this on you. I can paddle myself, or if two of us paddle, it paddles real easy because it's only in the water that much because it's so light and flat. So it doesn't push a lot of water. I know when I was doing it, people told me, well, that's going to paddle hard. No, it doesn't. The two of us carry it like nothing off the trailer or go to carry it down by the water. It weighs 52 pounds. All the ribs and the rails and the seats are white ash. In fact, it came from up in Michigan where I used to have some land. So I've got 13 ribs for every canoe. And then each rib has got 3 layers of ash. I coat them on something and I put them up on there and I clamp them in the middle. Then I start bending them around and clamping them as I go down. Then they sit for, well, at least for 24 hours before I pull them off. And they want to spring out a little bit. That's why I put this tape on there to hold them. First, I have to sand the sides off the ribs with a belt sander. As you can see, the glue is sticking out here. Then I put them back on, clamp them, and then I take a rasp and then I file the rib so that it meets this angle coming around here. So when I glue the planks to them, it's right on there. It's not glued on the corner, it's glued on the whole rib. But I will clamp these up. Every one of them, there will be 13 on there, all clamped up when I start planking. So they're locked right in place. And then once the planks are on there, then they don't move. I buy 16-foot lumber. They order it for me special in Green Bay. It's Western red cedar. And I order it, well, next thing to select. And then I saw it from both sides on my rip saw, almost all the way through, right through the middle. Then I take it on the bandsaw and split it the rest of the way. When that's done, then I run it through the planer down to 1/4 inch thick. And the planks get put on with a staple gun. But I pull the staples after it's dry, after the glue is dry. And everything's glued together. There is not the only fastener in the whole canoe is a bolt at each end of the seats. Other than that, there's no fasteners anywhere in the canoe. It's all epoxy. I've got marks down here. Tells me right where the bottom edge of the first plank is, see? And I get the first one on and I go to 2 3-inch wide. And then I hit the curve. Then I gotta go narrower. And when I get back to the bottom, then I go full width. I run one right down the middle and then start going on the sides and cutting them on an angle to fit them in there. I board sand it like this to get it all smooth. Then when it's nice and smooth all the way around, then I put the fiberglass cloth on. The cloth goes on dry. Then I coat the epoxy through the cloth onto the planking. Then I've got a red filler that goes on there, sand it a little bit. Then I put a white filler on, which sands real easy. So I want it real nice and fair, you know, so there's no bumps or anything in it. And then I clear coat that with epoxy. Then that gets wet sanded out and then painted. On the outside, I got to put like a keel down the center, and then that gets glassed over to reinforce it so you can bump some rocks and stuff with it and not damage it. Then I put the reinforcing here to mount the seats. It's double thick, 3/4 inch fir plywood, and that gets bolted in. This is hooked into the ribs and the planking and everything, so it's very strong. And then that keeps the boat from working this way too. I don't need any cross bracing in this boat. The rails, that's all white ash, you know, and I rip that down and plane it and then clamp the outside one on, then come along and clamp the inside one on. First I put a filler, short piece of cedar in between the ribs so that the inside of the rib is flush when I clamp the inside strip in. There's like a filler strip right here. And that makes it strong too because it's a sandwich. Well, this is laminated plywood, very strong. I slip a piece in underneath and then this one goes on top and it's all glued together along here. So that's really strong. You can lift on that or you can tie a rope through here. I got it so you can put a rope on there to pull it or whatever you want to do. This is top layer is Birch aircraft plywood. And that's fir plywood underneath there. But clear stuff, you know, I don't put anything in that's got any voids in it. These are all white ash. Yeah, everything's white ash. They're all glued together in the cross piece, and then they're tied underneath with fiberglass right here, like this. And then they're laced underneath. This is flotation foam, but it's very strong, or it's not flimsy. It's that thick in there, 3/4 of an inch thick. Not only is it a place to sit on, but it supplies flotation to the boat. Even though a wood boat will float, but this seat is set further back. So the person in the front, and then I usually sit in the back there where that seat's further back. So that the boat balances real good then. But if I was gonna go by myself in it, then I would sit on this one, put my feet this way, so the boat wouldn't do this, or a canoe. So I got it set up for 2 people or for 1. I've never built too much furniture, mostly boat stuff. Ice boats, sailboats. I've built a couple of 8-foot prams. I designed a real good pram that I built 2 of those. Most of the stuff's been my own design, except that ice boat is not my design, except for the mast and the sail. A friend of mine used to live north of, he passed away now, but we designed a whole new rig for it. And it just flies. That's it. There's probably only maybe 30 ice boats that are faster than that one right there in the whole country. And they're bigger, they're larger boats, and they're all built out of carbon fiber, but that boat is all wood, the whole thing. Mostly basswood too, by the way. I've got some basswood upstairs that's 22.5 feet that I use for building ice boats. That was cut right around here. And I air dry it upstairs. Same with the white ash I had. That was stuff that I brought down from up around Faithorn. In fact, I used to have a 40 up there. And that was all air dried upstairs. Well, I like to build them because they will do something. My ice boat will sail, my sailboat will sail. Of course, the canoe is very nice for shallow or quiet